What does that 41 represent on the Midway ship?
Well, 41 means that Midway in 1945 was the 41st carrier built by this country. Today, as many San Diegans know across the bay, the USS Ronald Reagan is 76. It was the 76th carrier built. That's the way the Navy keeps track of its ships.
We are on the Midway, and Scott McGaugh is our tour guide today. Scott, what else are we going to see?
Well, first of all, we're going to see how San Diegans are honoring the 58,300 Americans who gave their lives in Vietnam. Then we're going to explore the flight deck, the busiest airport in the world in its day. We're going to go down below and see how Midway is honoring the greatest generation from World War II. And finally, even lower, to the floating city at sea, population 4,500, all living inside 3 football fields.
Excellent. Let's go take a look. Scott, these yellow ribbons were placed by visitors who've come recently to the Midway. What do they represent?
Well, they represent the 58,300 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. In just the last 2 weeks, thousands of San Diegans as well as groups have come aboard to pay tribute.
And of course, this was during the time where folks were drafted, unlike the current situation where it's a voluntary service.
And so for people like me who happen to get a high number and weren't drafted, it's a real opportunity for us to pay our respects, particularly because the wall that heals, a 50% replica of the memorial wall in Washington, D.C., with all 58,000 names, is now on the bow of Midway for the next 5 days, open 24 hours a day at no charge. For all of San Diego to pay their respects in any way they see appropriate.
So this is the Buckeye. This is the plane that naval pilots trained in?
Yes, this is a trainer. This would be typically the kind of jet aircraft that an aviator would learn how to fly and perhaps be the first jet he would land aboard Midway. And when he did, he was landing at 150 miles an hour, not on a 3 football field long flight deck, but inside the dimensions of a tennis court, and he was aiming for the net and coming to a stop in 3 seconds.
And of course, the Midway was the first naval ship to carry nuclear weapons back in the day, right?
Absolutely right. And in fact, Midway was really a pioneer in naval aviation. It was the first American carrier with a steel flight deck, the first carrier with an angled flight deck, the first carrier to carry nuclear weapons and the aircraft large enough to carry those weapons in the late 1940s. It even helped pioneer autopilot technology in the 1960s that we all take for granted, from our vehicles to the space shuttle.
Headed towards the Galley or restaurant area.
And a sailor,
tight spaces.
Very tight, 2,000 rooms. It took some real knowledge to understand exactly how to get around on this ship.
And watch your head. You've described below deck the Galley area or restaurant as a city at sea. Why?
Well, with 4,500 men on board, only about 300 on average were pilots. The other 4,200 had city-like jobs down here, so 300 could fly. There were bakers and cobblers and cooks and electricians and welders and plumbers and postal clerks, all working so that an airport could operate. Here in the Galley, in one of 6 restaurants, the cooks prepared 10 tons of food a day, 13,000 meals a day. And when our guests come aboard, our great docent corps really brings that story to life, really makes it a much more personal experience for all our guests.
The docents were sailors themselves at some point, most of them.
Yes, absolutely. The vast majority serve in the Navy, with 400 docents volunteering their time. They are truly a big part of the success of Midway. The vast majority serve in the Navy. Many of them served on aircraft carriers. Some of them even served or flew off of Midway. So when you come aboard Midway, it's a very personal experience.
Welcome aboard the Midway, sir.
That brings it to a level that all ages can really enjoy and appreciate, not just the airport.
6 minutes that changed the world, Battle of the Midway. This is the newest attraction, the theater here. Also, what the ship was named after. Tell us more.
Well, many people assume that Midway fought at the battle. It did not. It was named for the Battle of Midway. And in listening to our guests, that we always do, we realized we needed to explain that significance, explain the entire story of the battle, its significance. It's the greatest victory in World War II in the Pacific. So we opened the theater a few weeks ago. It's proven very popular, a 15-minute film with holographic figures, characters. We meet the boiler tenders, the cooks, the pilots. I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert in terms of what ultimately happens, but it's proving to be a very inspirational experience to kick off your visit to Midway.
And this floating museum has proved to be a very welcoming experience for visitors.
Yes, you know, I was privileged to be part of the group of volunteers that brought Midway to San Diego. We never dreamed that in 10 years we would be hosting 1.2 million visitors a year, that our audio tour would be available in 5 foreign languages.